and welcome to another jewelry making video brought to you by keepsakecrafts.net. Today we'll be making this triple strand necklace. An interesting feature of this necklace are the wire rings on the sides, which condense the 3 strands down to 1, so you only have 1 strand going around the back. I made these particular wire wrapped rings, and I'll give you more information if that's something you'd like to try, but I'll also give you some alternatives in case that's something you're not interested in. For this project, I'm not going to give you an exact list of supplies because it's really an opportunity for you to use things that you have to make something that is important to you. This project actually started with these 2 polymer clay beads that I found on Etsy. I thought they were just wonderfully made out of flower canes, and they've been hanging around for a long time. I wanted to make something with them. So I thought they would look interesting in with a whole bunch of other blue beads. Now these wire wrapped components, it's really just 26 gauge craft wire. You can often buy it on a spool like this. And there's simply rings of wire wrapped around and around a cylindrical object and then making wrapped loops. And I'll show you a few alternatives. You might have seen on my blog a few days ago I posted this project, which is just a couple of small rings connected with some wire wrapped crystals to make a pair of earrings. Actually, the first components I made for this necklace were these ones, but I thought they were a little big. But they're all the same principle, and I learned how to make these in a Craftsy class, and I'll provide a link to that class in the description of the video. I also made one of these. I made it into, I just wrapped one end and then kind of made a messy toggle bar to make it a clasp. This needs some work, obviously. I have to develop that design. But just to give you the idea that there's lots of different things you can do. But I'm going to use these ones. However, if that's not something you're interested in, you can simply purchase soldered rings. These are just plain soldered rings that you can get at your craft store. You can get plain ones, you can get twisted. These are kind of pretty for a project. You can get hammered ones. The important thing is that they're soldered closed so that you're not going to have any part of your design falling apart. You could even, this is probably a little small and a little thick for this project, but if you were to find a toggle clasp, you might find that you can use one part of it to use as a component like this. So anyways, what you'll need is, first of all, a bead design board is very helpful in laying out your design, and I just have lots of different blue beads. In fact, each strand is different. This one has these crystals, this one has the large beads and my polymer clay beads, and this row has these crackle beads. What ties them all together is that they're all blue, and that each of the rows is going to have these clear large seed beads. Some of the other supplies you'll need, whatever you decide you want to use to make the part that goes around the back of your neck. I actually haven't decided that for certain, so I'll get back to you on that. You'll need some beading wire. And here's a tip for you. If you're selling your jewelry designs, you want to keep track of how much everything costs you. Now, 2 cents per inch seems like a negligible amount, but depending on how much you use in each project, it adds up, 19 cents a foot. And so I've started, when my orders come in, or when I come home with beads, I take a minute and sit down and calculate how much each component costs me. That way, as I'm making my jewelry, I can keep track of it. But this is just a nice medium gauge beading wire. Now this is different from the wrapping wire. This is not meant to be seen, and this one is. This is meant for you to string your beads on, and it's very strong and flexible and will give your necklace a nice drape. And this is meant for shaping. You can wrap it and shape it. So 2 different kinds of wire. You'll need crimps to finish your beading wire. You'll need something to cover your crimps. Now normally these aren't really crimp covers. These are what's called bead tips, but I'm going to use them as crimp covers as I have no crimp covers in the proper color. And then this is a new component you haven't seen me use before. See, I figured out the price on these. These are gold-plated wire guards, and I'll show you how to use those. You'll also need your usual array of tools, wire cutters, chain nose pliers. These are bent nose chain nose pliers, round nose pliers to make wrap loops if you're going to do that. So what I'm going to do now is string my middle strand of beads and get an idea of how long that is, because that length will determine how long my other strands are. So I've gone ahead and strung my beads on the wire from the strand. I actually finished one end, and I'm going to show you how to do the other end. So you want to cut yourself plenty of extra wire. It's only 2 cents an inch, 19 cents a foot. Cut yourself a good extra, maybe 4 inches of the wire. And now, like I said, I'm using bead tips to cover my crimp. So you wouldn't have to do this step, but just know if you ever do use bead tips. Let's see if I can get this so you can see. Get my big fingers out of the way. There's a little slot in the bead tip that the wire passes through before it goes into the shell. So you'll want to do that first. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the wire right in that slot with the cups facing up. They're going to be facing towards your crimp bead. So that goes on, and then the next is my crimp. And doesn't really matter what color you use because it's going to be covered up. If you're using crimp covers, you want to make sure that you match the size to the size of your crimp, because they do come in bigger sizes, and you want to have a crimp cover that's big enough to cover the crimp you used. And then next is this horseshoe-shaped little thing, which is called a wire protector. See if I can zoom in so you can see that. And it has a little channel through the top and little slots on the sides for the wire to go through. That way the wire, as it moves on whatever you've connected it to, it doesn't get abraded. And it also kind of covers it so it doesn't really show. So what you do is you take your wire and you go up through one of the little channels from one side of the horseshoe. Let's see if I can hold that so you can see it. And then back down through the other side, out the other end of the horseshoe. Just like that. So now you can kind of see how that works. Just trying to hold it so you can see it. And you can just pull that, and then the wire slips right into the, it's not slipping, right into the channel. There we are. See, it will. When it's pulled taut, it will be right in that channel. The next step is to put this on our component, whatever it is that you want your wire to attach to. And this is a little thick, but it does move freely. You don't want to use a ring that's so thick that that your wire protector won't move on it, but it pops right on there, just like that. And then next, I'm going to put the wire back through my crimp. And pull it snug-ish. You don't want ever, when you're stringing crimps on wire, to pull it so tight. See how rigid this necklace is? Because it's pulled so tight, it has no slack. And when you bend it, there actually isn't enough room for the beads to move freely and bend. So you want to give yourself a little bit of slack. 1/8 of an inch is plenty. And you'll see the big difference when I loosen this up a little. See how much more gracefully the necklace hangs? So give yourself a little slack. You won't ever see that wire. Make sure your wires are lying parallel to each other, not crisscrossing. And then you can just use the crimp that covers in the way, but we'll just kind of grab it, give it a good squish, tug on it, make sure it's secure. Okay, trim off the excess right below the crimp. And then the last step is to position your little cover and just give it a squeeze. I'm going to start that with my fingers. Oop, get over there. And then finish it with a gentle squeeze with my chain nose pliers. I'm also going to squeeze those tips of the horseshoe together. And now we have one strand on the necklace. The next step is to drape this up to yourself. Hold it up to a mirror and decide how long you want it to be and just how long you want the next strand to be. And here's a great way to determine, if just visually, how long your next strand should be. Take a flexible tape measure. So I have this laid out. I've held it up to myself and then determined the drape I want. And now I'm just going to position my tape measure right where I think the next strand should be. So 8 inches. You can see by putting the tape measure on end, you get a pretty accurate measurement and you can see it visually. Do you want it way up here? That's kind of silly, but maybe you like that. I think about 8 inches is how long I want my next strand of beads to be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to string the next strand at 8 inches and then I'll be back. So now I've completed this upper row of beads, about 8 inches, and now it's time to take a measurement for the final row. And you do it the same way. Flexible tape measure. Make sure that when you're stringing onto your ring that you do put them in the correct order so that they'll hang untwisted. So let's see. I think I want this to hang down a little bit more. So there we are, 13 inches. So I'm going to string this final strand at 13 inches, add it to these, and then decide what to do for the part that goes around the back of the neck. So I've finished my 3 strands and done a little bit of experimenting to decide how I wanted to finish the necklace. First I tried stringing a whole bunch of these onto some of the bead stringing wire, along with a couple of these beads for accents, but it just seemed like too much. So in the end I'm just going to go with some chain. But I am going to first wire wrap one of these beads on either side of the round component. So I will show you how to do that. And I'm going to use the same wire that I used to make the components so that they, go together. So you can actually work right off your spool at first here Just grab your wire, maybe an inch down with chain nose pliers, and give it a 90-degree bend. And then take your round nose pliers, put them right at that bend, and loop around. Reposition your round nose pliers so that you can finish that loop. And what you should end up with are the two wires at 90 degrees to each other with a loop in the middle. Go ahead and hold onto that loop with chain nose pliers and then wrap that wire around just to make the first half of a wrapped loop. Just kind of pushing that up, making it a little bit neater. Okay. And then you can see the round part got a little wonky, so I'm just going to go in there with my round nose pliers and kind of straighten that out a bit. And then trim off the excess. And I like to use my flush cutters. And if there's a little piece sticking out, just use chain nose pliers, or you can grab a pair of crimper tools that will get in there and really flatten that out. Now next I'm going to cut this off the spool, and I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 inches. And I think I'll string on, just to tie everything in, one of these clear large seed beads, one of my accent beads, and the next clear seed beads. You can probably tell I'm sort of figuring this out as I go along. Yeah, I like that. And then we'll start to make a wrap loop, same way. Grab with chain nose, 90-degree bend. So grab that with round nose pliers, bend the wire over, reposition the round nose pliers, and finish the wrap. Now, because we are attaching this to something, we need to do that before we finish making the wraps. So I'm going to pop it through this loop and then really just proceed. It's the same, except it might be a little bit awkward. So I'm going to use my smaller chain nose pliers to hold onto that loop and then grab the end. Glad I included that extra 1/2 inch or so. And just wrap. When you're done wrapping, trim off the excess. And tuck in that little bit of wire. I like to feel it with my fingers to make sure there's nothing, no sharp edges that are going to scratch the skin. I've had a few scratchy necklaces in my day, and I tend to avoid wearing them until I can solve the problem of why it's itching me. So I'm going to repeat that on the other side, adding this one. So to do those finishing steps, what I did was I held the necklace up to my neck, and I also used that flexible tape measure and put it around the back of my neck, and then measured where I wanted these points to come to. And that way I determined that I wanted another 18 inches of chain to go around the back to get this to hang where I wanted it. Now, since my little wrapped unit here takes up 1 inch, so that it would be 2 9-inch pieces for 18, and then each of these takes up 1 inch, so I cut 2 8-inch pieces of chain. And then you'll need 4 jump rings and a clasp. So to open your jump rings, you want to position the split at 12 o'clock, hold on to it with chain nose pliers. These are chain nose pliers. You may not have seen me use them before. They're bent nose. And then grab the other side with another pair of chain nose pliers, push one away from you, and pull the other towards you. It's a little less awkward holding jump rings with this particular shape of chain nose pliers that I'm going to slip on my wrapped unit and one end of my chain, and then reverse the process. Just grab the jump ring with the second pair of chain nose pliers and twist to close them up. Wiggle them towards each other so that those ends are right next to each other. You can actually push them towards each other so that they meet securely. Make sure you look at it from the top, from all angles, so that you know your jump ring is secure. Repeat to add the chain to the other side. Add a jump ring to one end and add your clasp with the jump ring to the other end. So here's another look at our completed necklace. I hope that you've enjoyed this project and that you'll find some beads you love and give it a try. Don't forget to check out the link to the Craftsy class if you'd like to learn how to make the round wire wrapped components along with lots more. It's an excellent class and I highly recommend it. Please be sure to check out keepsakecrafts.net for more crafting ideas and inspiration, and subscribe to keepsakecrafts.net and to this YouTube channel so you don't miss a thing. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.